Stephanie Dobson is back with us this week. Stephanie is a lawyer and mediator here in Lloydminster at Henka Divorce Law and Mediation. And Stephanie, today we are going to be talking about what disclosure means when it comes to separation and divorce. So let's start with that. Tell me exactly what it means when it comes to this process, Stephanie.
Well, the word disclosure in a legal context, especially in family law, is the process of providing information and documentation, which is relating to four main categories: income, expenses, assets, and debts. So in a separation and divorce, documents are required to be exchanged between two separating parties to make sure that both are fully informed before a resolution is able to be reached. Now, some families come into a separation or divorce already generally having an idea of what each of their finances look like, and others are completely in the dark. But either way, before resolution can occur, we need to go through this process called the disclosure process to exchange this kind of information.
So what type of things need to be exchanged back and forth? What type of information exactly are we talking about here, Stephanie?
There's a few layers to it. So the first layer I call the standard disclosure. So these are things like income tax returns, notices of assessment, pay stubs, statement-based documentation like bank accounts, investment accounts, retirement accounts, pensions, life insurance statements, credit cards, other loan kind of details. Maybe if you've got a business, you'll have to provide some business documentation and appraisals for things like tangible assets such as a house or vehicles. Now, once we get through that standard disclosure, there's another layer. And that is going to be depending on your situation. So we may need to dig a little bit deeper. So getting a little bit more forensic, things like full business valuations, full and formal appraisals that you actually have to start spending money on, and other more forensic information relating to any of those areas: assets, debts, income, and expenses. We always start with that standard disclosure, and then we go from there and may need to get a little bit more depending on your situation. When I work with families, I always give them a checklist because, of course, these multiple layers can get very complex. And so hopefully that will help with the overwhelm and to reduce that so that people are able to gather things easily enough.
When should this process start, Stephanie, as far as getting the documentation together for what information you're going to need for disclosure?
I often recommend to families that once you know that the separation is looming or a separation is looming, it's important to start thinking about gathering those documents. First of all, it can be very time consuming. I just gave a whole laundry list of all sorts of things that you need to start to gather. So if you can do it in a way that's not time pressured, is advantageous to you. Secondly, once a separation starts looming, sometimes spouses can start to become more secretive about their documentation or all of their disclosure. And so the sooner that you start to gather that, the less likely it is that you will end up being on the outside and not having access to documents that you need to reach resolution. Now, in the mediation processes that I work in, the starting point of mediation is the full transparency with respect to disclosure. So if you're going into mediation, it doesn't necessarily matter whether you gather it before or after the separation, because that as a foundation is that you need to provide whatever documentation is required.
So how do you arrange to get these documents to the person that is working through your divorce or separation, Stephanie?
Well, it used to be that you would simply drop off all your documents in paper form to your lawyer or mediator's office, and most certainly people can still do that. If you start to get into the more of the technology, a lot of people will keep their documents electronically or are in favor of scanning things in, and so you can send them by email, or in our case, we use a client portal, and that's a really handy way to be able to send all of your documents to us because it's secure and everything is all remains in one spot. For us, our biggest goal is to try to reduce the stress of separation or divorce as much as possible with our clients. And so we first start by asking, what's your comfort level with technology? And if someone wants to and just can't handle scanning things in or providing it electronically, we just have them come to our office and drop things off. But for the most part, most of our clients will get on the bandwagon of either email or the client portal, and they tend to love it.
Stephanie, there is so much and so many different areas we've covered in these past few months talking about divorce and separation. Where is the best place if people have questions about disclosure that we talked about today or anything that we have discussed in the past couple of months? Where can they go to either ask questions or to look back on topics that we've discussed in the past?
Sure. The easiest way if people want to call our office and have that verbal connection with us is just by phone, 780-875-2234, or head over to our website, Henka Divorce, Henka, divorce.ca, and there's lots of resources on there. If you have a look under, there's a button that we just put onto our homepage that says Getting Started that really helps you to guide you through the process. It does go through and explain the disclosure process a little bit. Of course, we go through it more in your initial consultation.
All right. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much again for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me, Stacey.